Hey everyone, welcome back. We all want to keep our minds sharp, especially as we think about the long haul. So today we're going to dive deep into something really important. The connection between what we eat and our chances of developing dementia later in life. It's a topic that's on a lot of people's minds these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been so much research on this lately. We've been poring over studies, trying to sift through all the technical stuff and bring you the most practical insights, so you can actually use this information.
Right, we don't want to just throw a bunch of scientific jargon at you. Instead, we want to make it clear how your food choices can really make a difference, for your brain health down the road. So let's jump right in.
Okay, sounds good.
When we look at the research, what are some of the things that kind of jump out? Like, what should we be watching out for?
Well, one of the big ones is this category called ultra B work voting.
Okay, and just so everyone's on the same page, what exactly does that mean?
Basically, it's the stuff that's been heavily processed. Think packaged snacks, sugary sodas, fast food, that kind of thing. Stuff that's really easy to grab and go.
Right, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Busy day, easy to just pick something up. But the studies are showing some pretty strong links between these ultra-processed foods and dementia risk.
Exactly. And the numbers are kind of alarming. Some studies suggest that for every 10% increase in ultra-processed food intake, there's a corresponding 25% higher risk of dementia.
Wow, 25%, that's a significant jump.
It is. And, it's especially concerning because as we get older, sometimes those convenient options become even more appealing.
Yeah, that's a good point. But the good news is that there's also evidence suggesting that we can make a real difference by making different choices.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it this way. If you just replace 10% of those ultra-processed foods with whole, unprocessed options.
Yeah, like what kinds of things are we talking about?
Think fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, legumes, that kind of thing. The research suggests that making that shift could lower dementia risk by 19%.
Wow, that's almost as much as the increase we see with the ultra-processed food.
It is. It really highlights how powerful even small dietary changes can be. And it's not just about what we avoid, but also what we actively incorporate into our diets.
Makes sense. So it's not about being perfect, it's about making gradual, positive changes over time.
Right, exactly. And speaking of things we might want to be mindful of, there's another category that the research highlights. It's bewerkt roodvlees or processed red meat.
Okay, so things like sausages, bacon, deli meats.
Yeah, exactly. Things that are often easy to just grab and go, especially for folks who might be busier or have less time to cook. But studies show that daily consumption of these processed red meats is linked to about a 13% increase in dementia risk.
13%, that's not insignificant.
Not at all. And again, it's something to be mindful of, especially as we get older and our dietary needs and habits might change.
So what are some healthier alternatives to those processed red meats that people can consider?
Well, there are a lot of great options out there. Fish is a good one. It's packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which are known to be beneficial for brain health. Nuts and legumes are also good sources of protein and fiber, and they offer a variety of vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, and they're so versatile. You can add them to salads, soups, stews, you name it.
Exactly. There are tons of ways to incorporate them, and it's not just about specific foods either. The research also points to the importance of watching our overall intake of sugar, salt, and vet saturated fat.
Right. Those are things that we hear a lot about in general when it comes to healthy eating, but it sounds like they play a role in brain health as well.
They do. And then there are wheat gran productin or white grain products, things like white bread, white rice, a lot of the refined cereals out there.
Yeah, those are definitely staples in a lot of people's diets. But are they as good for us as we might think?
Well, the research suggests that they might not be the best choice, especially when it comes to brain health. They tend to be lower in fiber and nutrients compared to whole grains, and they can spike blood sugar levels more quickly, which can have negative effects on the brain over time.
Got it. So we've talked about some of the things we might want to be cautious about. Now let's shift gears and talk about some of the things that research suggests can actually protect our brains as we age. What are some of the foods that seem to have a positive impact?
Well, one of the most exciting areas of research is on flavonoid-rich of voting foods that are rich in flavonoids.
Okay, flavonoids. Can you break that down a little bit for us?
Sure, flavonoids are these powerful plant compounds that are found naturally in a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, and beverages. And they're getting a lot of attention lately because research suggests that they could play a role in reducing the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia.
Wow, that's huge. So where can we find these flavonoids?
Well, there are a lot of delicious sources out there. Berries are a great one, especially blueberries and strawberries. They're packed with antioxidants, including flavonoids. Green tea is another good source, as are citrus fruits like oranges and grapefruits. And even vegetables like broccoli and spinach contain flavonoids.
Interesting. So it's not just about eating our fruits and veggies, it's also about choosing a variety of colors.
Exactly. The more colorful your plate, the wider range of flavonoids you're likely to be getting. And those flavonoids can really pack a punch when it comes to protecting your brain.
Okay, so flavonoids are definitely something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
What else does the research suggest we should be focusing on?
Well, another important factor is fiber. A vessel-rich diet, or fiber-rich diet, has been linked to a number of health benefits, including a reduced risk of dementia.
And when we talk about fiber, is there a particular type that we should be looking for?
Yeah, there's a type called Oplosbare vessels, or soluble fiber. This type of fiber dissolves in water and forms a gel-like substance in your gut. And it's this gel that seems to have the most beneficial effects when it comes to brain health.
Okay, so where can we find this soluble fiber?
Oats are a great source. And beans, lentils, apples, pears, that kind of thing, they're all good sources of soluble fiber. And some studies suggest that a diet high in soluble fiber could potentially lower the risk of dementia by around 25%.
25%, that's a pretty big impact.
Yeah, it's significant. And it has to do with the way fiber interacts with our gut microbiome, which is essentially the community of trillions of bacteria that live in our digestive system.
The gut microbiome. It seems like we're hearing more and more about that these days.
We are, and for good reason. It
Yeah.
turns out that the gut microbiome plays a really important role in overall health, including brain health. And fiber is one of the key things that helps to keep our gut microbiome healthy and balanced.
Interesting. So it's not just about what we're putting into our mouths, it's also about what's going on in our gut.
Precisely. And speaking of dietary patterns that are good for our gut and our brain, we can't forget about the Mediterranean diet.
Ah, yes, the Mediterranean diet is always getting so much buzz. But what exactly is it, and why is it so good for us?
Well, the Mediterranean diet is more than just a fad. It's a way of eating that's been followed by people in the Mediterranean region for centuries. And it's characterized by a high intake of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and olive oil. Fish is also a key component, and red meat is consumed only sparingly.
So it's really a plant-focused way of eating.
It is, and it's an approach that's been shown to have numerous health benefits, including a reduced risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and yes, dementia. In fact, some studies suggest that individuals who closely follow a Mediterranean diet have almost a 25% lower risk of developing dementia.
Wow, that's pretty compelling.
It is, and it makes sense when you think about it. The Mediterranean diet is full of antioxidants, fiber, and healthy fats, all of which are essential for brain health.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about some of the things we might want to avoid, like ultra-processed foods and processed red meat. And we've talked about some of the things we should be eating more of, like flavonoid-rich foods, fiber, and foods that align with the principles of the Mediterranean diet.
Right. And if we were to kind of sum it all up, I think the key takeaway is that what we eat really does matter when it comes to our brain health, especially as we get older.
Absolutely. It's not just about weight management or heart health. It's about taking care of our brains so that we can stay sharp and engaged in life for as long as possible.
Exactly. And it's never too early or too late to start making changes.
And I think it's important to emphasize that it doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach.
That's a really important point. Making gradual changes to your diet, even small ones, can have a significant impact over time.
Right. It's about finding what works for you and making those changes sustainable so that they become part of your lifestyle.
Exactly. And along those lines, it's worth mentioning that there are a couple of specific micronutrients that play a particularly important role in brain health.
Oh, micronutrients. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Micronutrients are basically vitamins and minerals that our bodies need in small amounts. But even though we only need small amounts of them, they play a really big role in keeping us healthy. And when it comes to brain health, two micronutrients that are especially important are vitamin B12 and folate.
Okay, vitamin B12 and folate. Why are those so important for the brain?
Well, vitamin B12 is essential for the formation of red blood cells, which carry oxygen to the brain. It also helps to maintain the myelin sheath, which is the protective covering that surrounds nerve fibers. And without enough vitamin B12, our brains can't function properly. We can experience things like memory problems, difficulty concentrating, and even mood changes.
Wow, that's pretty serious.
It is, and unfortunately, as we get older, our bodies become less efficient at absorbing vitamin B12 from food. So it's something that we need to be particularly mindful of as we age.
Okay, so how can we make sure we're getting enough vitamin B12?
Well, there are a number of good food sources like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and dairy products. But if you're concerned about your intake, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor. They can check your levels and recommend a supplement if needed.
Got it. And what about folate? What role does that play in brain health?
Folate is a B vitamin that's essential for cell growth and development, including the development of the nervous system. It also helps to produce neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that our brains use to communicate.
So it's kind of like the brain's messenger system.
In a way, yes. And without enough folate, our brains can't function optimally. We can experience problems with memory, concentration, and even mood.
And what are some good sources of folate?
Leafy green vegetables are a great source,
Yeah.
as are legumes, citrus fruits, and fortified grains.
Okay, good to know. So it sounds like we've covered a lot of important ground today. We've talked about the potential downsides of ultra-processed foods and processed meats, the protective effects of flavonoid-rich foods, fiber, and the Mediterranean diet, and the importance of certain key micronutrients like B12 and folate.
It's been a really comprehensive discussion, and I think it really highlights the important connection between what we eat and our brain health, especially as we age.
Right. And I hope it empowers our listeners to take charge of their own brain health by making informed choices about what they eat.
I hope so too. Even small changes can make a big difference in the long run.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking about this today.
Yes, it has. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.